Andrews. We are set today for a hearing regarding court-ordered services. The department is present, represented by Mr. Mike Knight and joined by Ms. Nicole Howe. In addition, Mr. William Asari is here as the attorney for the respondent mother, Chelsea Andrews. Ms. Andrews is present by phone. In addition, Mr. Michael George is here as the attorney ad litem for the child. I believe that's everyone. We were previously set at our last docket. My notes from that docket said that we recessed the proceedings to allow Ms. Andrews to voluntarily submit to a hair test in the next 24 hours. If it is negative, the case will be dismissed and no future hearing will be needed. If it is positive, the hearing will resume on March the 7th at 9. So, Mr. Knight, what is the department's position today?
Well, Your Honor, we don't have a hair test, a drug test in hand because it wasn't taken. So we would like an order to participate. Thank you.
All right. Well, then it sounds like we need some testimony. Who would you like to call in support of your request?
Well, I'd like to call Mr. Asari. He's such a brilliant conversationalist, but I think I should start with Ms. Houck.
All right, Ms. Houck, if I can get you to unmute yourself and raise your right hand. Do you swear and affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? All right, I can't hear you, Ms. Houck. I'm not sure what the issue is.
I don't know either. Can you hear me now? No?
A little, yes,
know.
that's better. So,
Okay. Yes, I prefer to tell the truth.
okay, thank you. So that answer was yes. Ms.
Yes.
Houck is sworn, and Mr. Knight, you may proceed.
Ms. Houck, after the prior hearing, what steps did you take to arrange for a drug test for Ms. Andrews?
I had received a phone call from her attorney requesting that the paperwork be sent to a clinic in Corpus, as Ms. Andrews was headed that way because her sister was giving birth at a hospital in Corpus. So the department did make arrangements and the paperwork was sent to the clinic that we contract with in Corpus. I verified the address with Mr. Asari, and the paperwork was then sent over.
And did you contact that institution later?
I did. On Friday afternoon, I contacted the clinic. They showed no record of Miss Andrews signing in.
All right. Did you attempt to contact Miss Andrews to reschedule?
I did not.
Have you had any contact with her since that date?
The only contact that I had with her was that immediately after the hearing, I asked her if she was going to go that day or the following day because of the way the paperwork needed to be sent. She informed me she would let me know once she got to the hospital, but then I never heard from her.
So your phone number hasn't changed and you've been accessible all this time, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
So had she wanted to voluntarily test, she could have recontacted you and rescheduled, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Have you been given any reason why she could not make the appointment as scheduled?
No.
And basically, when someone refuses a test, the department assumes quite naturally that's an indication of drug use. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And given Ms. Andrews' history, she does have a history of drug use. Is that correct?
Yes.
And that's what the department is concerned about?
Yes.
And the department, based on her prior history of drug use, her refusal of drug test, is asking that an order to participate be granted?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me? Yes.
Thank you. That's a little delayed response and a little feeble there.
Something's wrong with, I guess I need to be closer to my computer or something. I apologize.
Okay. I didn't know. I thought it was me. I'm the one that needs a hearing aid. Okay, thank you. Pass the witness.
All right, Mr. Asari, any questions from you?
Yes, Your Honor, just a few questions. So it's your testimony that you did not reach out to Miss Andrews after the 24-hour period expired?
No, I did not.
Okay, so you didn't reach out to see if there were any transportation issues or any other issues that prevented her to test within that time frame?
No, I did not.
And you did not reach out to her to make arrangements to try and test for another day. Is that correct?
No.
Okay. And we still have a UA that she took recently. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And that UA, what were the results negative?
Yes.
Okay. Those are the questions I have. I'll pass the witness.
All right, Mr. George.
Now, I guess the converse of that question from Mr. Sari would be, after the 24-hour period, did mom, Miss Andrews, did she reach back out to you or shoot you a text or emails, something along those lines saying, hey, flat tire, can we set this up early in the morning, got the tire fixed, anything like that?
No, sir.
And you mentioned something about they were on their, I guess they being Miss Andrews and I guess family or friends were on their way to the hospital because was it her sister that was delivering?
That's the information that I got. Yes, sir. I believe that when Miss Andrews was on her way with either a family member or a friend to the hospital because her sister was giving birth.
Okay. And that would be here in Corpus Christi, or would that be at Spawn and Beeville?
No, I was informed that it was in Corpus Christi.
Okay. Okay. And how old is the? I mean, I don't know if that information is in front of you, but what is the date on the UA was taken?
Oh, I don't have that information in front of me. So it would have been Thursday, February the 2nd that the UA was taken.
Okay, and then subsequent to that, the first hearing last week took place, or at least got started.
Yes.
And it's my understanding that if she could pass a hair follicle exam and that come back clean, that that would put a different posture on this case.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Knight, any additional questions?
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Houck, the UA that was taken, was that a delayed UA?
Yes, it was.
In other words, the department asked for UA and Ms. Andrews delayed in giving that UA.
Yes.
Do you recall how much delay it was?
It was 3 days.
And isn't that a typical tactic to ensure that a negative UA is given so that drugs are already out of the system?
Yes.
So would it be fair to characterize Ms. Andrews as being uncooperative and or evasive?
Yes.
Because wouldn't it stand to reason that if you could give a hair follicle and be clean and the case goes away, that most reasonable people would do that?
Yes.
Objection, speculation.
I'll sustain that. Mr. Knight, any additional questions?
It was a great question and a great objection. Pass the witness.
All right. All right. Anyone else have questions for Ms. Houck? No? Any other witnesses, Mr. Knight?
I'm gonna call Miss Andrews because she's got a right to speak her piece.
Ms. Andrews, can I get you to unmute yourself? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Knight, you may proceed.
Miss Andrews, can you tell the court why you're unable to take the hair follicle test?
I guess I started thinking about it, and I don't feel like there's any grounds for it. I don't feel like there's any reasoning for it. I feel as though the UA should have sufficed. The test was not delayed. I called the clinic and was going to go in and take the UA, and they informed me that they were not doing UAs that day for CPS.
Andrews,
and
did you understand the order of the court?
I do understand that.
And so you don't think the order of the court was worth anything either?
It was not ordered. I was asked if I would go take the test. That's what I was, that's how I understood it.
Well, ma'am, if you had the opportunity to take a hair follicle test and have all this go away, why didn't you take it if you're negative?
On what grounds would I go, take the test? I've given you a negative UA already.
A delayed
So
UA.
why- It
Ms.
was not
Andrews,
delayed,
would
sir.
you agree with me that you've used methamphetamines in the past?
That's correct. I have in the past, years and years ago. I've had a pretty bad drug problem, and I went to rehab, and that's been resolved. There's no immediate threat. I went and took a UA. They came to my house. They've spoken to my family. I just don't see any reasoning for anything
Ms.
further. I feel
Andrews,
like
I have no further questions for you.
okay.
I take that back. And so because you felt the test was unnecessary, you did not reach out to Ms. Houck to reschedule?
That's correct. I did not.
Okay, thank you so
I
much.
did not. You're welcome.
All right, Mr. Asari, questions for Ms. Andrews?
Okay, so if we can go back to the UA, is your testimony that you did not delay for the UA? Is that correct?
That is correct. I did not delay it. The clinic actually
Okay.
did.
Okay, and if we can go step by step about your procedure going in to get the UA done. The day you were requested to go in for a UA, did you contact the clinic that day?
It was at night. She requested it, or she came to my house in the evening time. I couldn't have gone and I couldn't have done that. It was late, so I waited till the next day and called, and that's when they informed me that they were not doing tests that day. I didn't ask why, but I did contact Nicole, and I did inform her of that, and she did respond. And I even gave her the name of the woman I spoke with on the phone, so she could call and verify, and that was not done. So, I went and I cooperated. I went and took your UA, and I passed it. So I feel like there's no need to do, a hair follicle.
Understandable. So the day you were requested to go in for UA, it was late in the evening. Safe to say the clinic was closed by then?
That's correct. Very much so, I'm sure.
Okay. And then the following day, you contacted the clinic and you were informed that they were not doing any testing that day?
That's correct. So I had to wait until the following day, I believe.
Okay.
Too.
Okay. And I'm sorry. And that same day you contacted Ms. Hope to let her know that you reached out to the clinic, right?
That is correct.
Okay. And then the following day, did you contact the clinic?
I did not, because the woman said I could just come in. So I just went in and took the test. And when I was done, I took a picture of the papers and sent them to my caseworker.
Okay. Okay. So there was no purposeful delay on your part, correct?
Absolutely not.
Okay. You had nothing to hide, right?
No, I do not.
Okay. And if we can talk about the hair follicle briefly, when we were last in court, you were requested to submit for a hair follicle, right?
I was asked if I would be willing to go take one. That's correct.
When you were requested, did you feel that you had the option to say yes or no?
At the time, no.
You felt like you were
I
put
didn't
on
know.
the spot?
Very much so. I didn't know that I had a choice. No.
Okay. And after court, you took some time to think about it further, right?
I did, because it doesn't sit right with me.
Okay. Okay. And just so that we're clear, you're concerned about taking a hair follicle. It is not because you have anything to hide, right?
That's correct,
Yes,
sir.
leading.
I'm sorry.
The objection leading, Your Honor.
Right, I'll sustain that.
But Ms. Andrews, just so you can clarify for us, explain to us the reason why you did not elect to take the hair follicle test.
I just don't feel like there's any grounds. There's no reasoning. I mean, when they're worried about me using drugs, correct? So I proved to them already that I'm not, and apparently that's not. I mean, it's not. They want more evidence, I guess, or whatever. And I don't feel like that's necessary when I've already proven to these people that I'm not currently using drugs. Then that's what the allegations were. So okay, I feel like it should be done deal.
Okay. Your Honor, those are all the questions I have. I'll pass the witness.
Your Honor, may I recall Ms. Houck briefly? I'm sorry, I've got Mr. George, you may have questions.
But let me let Mr. George. Mr. George, do you have any questions for Ms. Andrews?
Yes. Miss Andrews, you know, I represent your child, correct?
Yes.
And I was unable to be at the prior hearing last week because I was actually live at the courthouse, which
Okay.
I apologize for that. It was a major scheduling conflict.
Okay.
Now, if you recall last week's hearing, who asked you to take the hair follicle?
I believe my caseworker, and then I believe the judge did as well. I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
Which one or who.
What was your answer?
I would be willing because I didn't know that I could say no. I'm not willing to do.
Ma'am, did you either say
Yes,
yes
sir.
or no?
I said yes, I would be willing to.
Okay. No more questions, Your Honor.
All right. Okay. Then Mr. Knight, you may recall Ms. Houck.
Just briefly, Ms. Houck, can you clarify for the court the circumstances surrounding the UA request?
Special Investigator Diana Leal and I met with Ms. Andrews at her mother's residence on a Monday evening, and I requested that she go the following day on Tuesday. She then texted me on a Wednesday informing me that the clinic was not drug testing that day. I said that's fine and asked her to go the following day. I did not receive any photographs of documentation that they had been completed. I was able to find the results the following week on TDATS, which is the website that we use.
Were you able to verify whether or not the clinic was actually doing drug tests Tuesday?
I did not, even if I had, I cannot force her to go that day. That's why I told her that it was fine to go the following day.
Have you ever had a problem before of a clinic not doing drug testing on a particular day?
I have. There's every once in a while they get too busy, so I have had that problem before.
Okay, thank you. Pass the witness. That's all we have.
All right. Anyone else? All right. I don't see any other witnesses to call, so let me just get argument from counsel. Mr. Knight.
Well, I'd ask the court to take judicial notice of the court's file. And I do believe that the reason that the hair follicle test was not taken, it was very clear at the end of the prior hearing that if it was taken and it was clean, we wouldn't come back. I think it was taken deliberately to avoid giving the department evidence to prove up that unfortunately Ms. Andrews does have a drug problem. At this point in time, I would ask that motion to participate be granted and that we have a fingernail test. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Knight. Mr. Asari.
Yes, Your Honor. We've heard testimony from last week that Ms. Andrews has been fully cooperative with the department. She allowed the department to visit the home that she's staying in. She's currently staying with her mother. She has been, we've heard testimony that she's been staying there for roughly 2.5 months, close to 3 months now. We've also heard testimony that the department checked out the home, and the home looked to be appropriate and safe for the child at issue. We've also heard testimony that the department had the chance to view the child, and the child looked fine. He looked safe. There were no issues, Your Honor. So we're dealing with a case where there really aren't any issues here. Really aren't any concerns with the family to warrant the department intruding in their life. And even on top of that, Miss Andrews was requested to take a UA, and she did just that. This was not a delay tactic. There was not any delay here. We've heard testimony of Miss Andrews and even Miss Hope providing an explanation for why testing was not done the following day. Miss Andrews contacted the clinic the following day. Unfortunately, the clinic advised that they were not conducting any tests that day. We go into the hair follicle issue. There just aren't any grounds at this point to really warrant the need for a hair follicle. Miss Andrews, she felt that she was put on the spot with that request for a hair follicle in court last week. She felt that there really was an option to say no at that point. And after reflecting on it, she felt that she fully cooperated and there was just no need for further intrusion. So I would ask that the request for services be denied in this case. The child is in a safe and appropriate home. Ms. Andrews is in a loving and caring home with a support system that is helping and being there for Ms. Andrews and the child. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Asari. Mr. George?
Your Honor, the one thing that I feel comfortable about as far as the UA goes is that I do not believe she is smoking marijuana or is using, I don't think marijuana is an issue. Even based on the argument of the 3-day, roughly 72-hour time period from request to sample, that still leaves an unanswered question as to the remaining historical drugs, which could be removed from the system through normal metabolic process within the 72 hours. So I don't think marijuana is an issue. I think that she has a medically determined disease which can be in remission for a lifetime. It is also subject to the possibility of periodic relapses. It's the kind of situation where we'd like to, if in fact she is in a relapse, it would be so much better for the child, better for herself, better for her parent-child relationship to direct the services specifically at helping her through the relapse so that she can retain and maintain sobriety. There's a question in my mind if she tells somebody asked, Ms. Houck asked, and the court asked, will you be willing to do a hair follicle? And she says yes. And if that's all it would take, and if the end of the case would come, if the results were negative, I mean, I would think based on history with the department, I would be first in line to, you know, do the hair, here's the fingernails, is there anything else you need? Because that would have been the end of it. That shows the historical over the past several months, whether or not any of those substances of issue were, you know, rearing their heads, that we needed to help with the services and resources that we had to help her, you know, retain and maintain sobriety. It also takes her off the radar. Unfortunately, by not taking that hair follicle, it just remains on the radar as an issue. I don't hear anyone saying removal. I think that based on she appears to be cooperative with the department, that usually ends up being a very, hopefully a short-term relapse prevention program, so to speak. But I don't think anybody's interested in breaking the family up or giving Miss Andrews a hard time. We just want to make sure that she's not in a position where she's set up for relapse. And unfortunately, once the department gets involved, they need to have some definitive answers to their concerns. So for that reason, I'm requesting that the court set up appropriate services for the specific things we've been talking about today.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. George.
Yeah,
I tend to. What's that, Mr. Knight?
A brief rejoinder. Miss Andrews actually has moved around quite a bit. In fact, we got her served over in Live Oak County, where she was taking her boyfriend's child to school, which would indicate she was probably staying there. I think the better view is she's moving back and forth, and with her mom at need, and when not at need, with her boyfriend. But I do agree with Mr. George, and I would ask the court to take judicial notice of the fact that in another lifetime, he was a pharmacist and taught pharmacology. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that background. I knew that, but it was good to be reminded
It's nice to have
that as well. Yes. I will say this. At this time, based on the testimony that's been heard today and at our last setting, in conjunction with my review of the file and the documented investigation that Ms. Haupt conducted, as well as the history with Ms. Andrews and the department, the court does find that sufficient evidence to satisfy a person of ordinary prudence and caution has been presented that abuse or neglect has occurred, or that there is a substantial risk of abuse or neglect or continuing danger to the physical health or safety of the child caused by an act or failure to act of the parent. In this case, services are necessary to ensure the physical health or safety of the child. In that respect, the court today is ordering Ms. Chelsea Andrews to engage in the following services offered by the department: to submit to regular random drug testing, and to submit to a fingernail test and a hair test within the next 3 days. That is an order. It's not a request any longer. And in terms of the outcome of those drug tests, if they indicate use of any substance, the court is also ordering a drug and alcohol assessment and any treatment or services recommended by that assessment. The court at this time feels that that is the one narrow issue that needs to be addressed here, and that those services are sufficient at this time to address the concerns of the department. The court at this time wants to just say that as the fact finder, I agree with Ms. Andrews that I did not order the hair test last time. I asked if she was willing to do it, and she indicated that she would. because it would show that she was clean. And the fact that she did not, this fact finder can infer that she was avoiding the results of that test. The record also of the investigation, I just want to say, in my view, shows that she was minimally cooperative. I mean, only responsive to Ms. Hauk after repeated efforts to locate her and work with her. I don't think it can be characterized as cooperative at all. And that is also indicative of when you're that evasive with the department, this court can infer that there's reasons you aren't cooperating and things that you're trying to hide. Given the age of the child, these services, I think, are necessary for his safety and well-being. We'll come back on April the 25th at 1:30 in order to review how we are doing with this case. It's my hope, Ms. Andrews, that you will, if there's nothing to be concerned of, now that it's an order and you're ordered to do it, that you will get this done. If I have nothing to be concerned about, once again, you can prove your innocence, and your failure to do so will just only further strengthen my opinion that you are potentially using some pretty concerning substances. So let's come back on April the 25th at 1:30. Is there anything else that we need to address at this time?
Nothing further, Your Honor.
All right, well, thank you all. If there a permanency review after final order for Jacob and a services review hearing for Michael, the court will recognize that the department is present. Mr. Mike Knight is joining now. He is the attorney for the department, joined by both Ms. Sandra Lopez and Ms. Brandy Marion. We also have Mr. Boyd Bauer with us this afternoon, and Mr. Bauer is the attorney ad litem for the children in this case. I see we have, I believe, at least Michael's foster parent with us, and so thank you for joining us, and I appreciate you being here. And Mr. Knight, I will turn it over to you. You may proceed.
Okay, Ms. Lopez, can you bring us up to date? Well, I'm trying to think who is, well, we've got two caseworkers, but one has one child, one has the other child. And who wants to go first?
We can start with Ms. Lopez, and we established that she's working with Michael.
For the record, state who your charge is and how he is doing.
He is currently in extended care. He is in the spring semester of his senior year of high school. His plan is still to remain in extended care through November of 2023, when he can enlist in the Marines. Michael has had some difficulties. He failed a class first semester, which was forensic science, with a 68. I'm aware that foster parents have been working with the school to have him get back on target with his grades. He has had two incidences, one on February 3rd, I believe, where he was with a friend at Walmart, and he was the lookout where his friend stole some condoms and candy totaling approximately $80. Walmart was not going to pursue criminal charges, and foster parents were addressing that behavior with him. And then March 2nd, he was placed in ISS for five days through March 10th because he had a vape pen at school. I did speak to him yesterday. He said that he's getting back on track. He is trying to pick up his grades. He has two tests he has to turn in for forensic science to pick up his grades. He is involved in modeling classes and based on contact with him and Miss Ingham, he is very interested in that. And the department is in the process of assisting in payment for those modeling classes. Michael did say yesterday that he may have an interview related to modeling. So we are just waiting on that. And so far, that's where we are up to today.
And what is your request of the department today?
The request is that we continue with the current placement and continue to monitor Michael's progress in school. He seems to be doing well in the foster home. We do have some slight behavioral issues. However, he's working on that.
Thank you, pass the witness.
Has he had a recent circle of support just in terms of helping plan? I know his plan is to join the Marines. Has there been any additional PAL services offered to him?
We had a circle of support, I believe in October, before he turned 18, and that was the last one we had.
The last one. All right. And so once, if we can get him through this semester, he will be entitled to some benefits. Does he understand what those are and how he can access them?
Yes, he is aware of it, and I'm aware that foster mom has been talking to him about college hours. We just have to keep reminding him of that.
Okay, so all right. So at this time, is there any additional service that you think that he needs in order to get through this semester, graduate, and to work towards his transition to the military?
I don't believe so. I am scheduled to visit with him next week, and that will be one of our topics that we're going to be discussing. But when I spoke to him yesterday, he didn't seem to think he needed any additional services.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you then. Well, let's go ahead and hear then from Miss Marion about Jacob. Mr. Knight, would you like to proceed?
May it please court.
Yes.
Caseworker Marion, can you please tell us how your charge is doing?
Good afternoon. Jacob's doing really well. He's doing good in school. He's involved in choir. Choir is going to be traveling in June out of state. I'm waiting for all the details from the choir director so I could submit that to the court for permission. And the department's going to help try to pay for some of the funding for that. He is in baseball and staying busy. Overall, he's pretty stable and doing really well.
And what is your request to the court today?
The request is that he continues placement. I know foster mom, she is on, him and Jacob have been doing the joint therapy, and I did submit the letter from the therapist. Jacob loves being with Mrs. Lee and doesn't want to leave. Even after he ages out, he wants to still continue staying there and go to community college.
All right, pass the witness.
Any questions, Mr. Bauer, for Miss Marion?
Yes, Your Honor, I have a few questions. Thank you. Ms. Marion, you mentioned the choir trip that's coming up this summer. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. It's the beginning of June. I did contact the choir director. I'm just pending all the documentation from him with all the itinerary and details for that.
Okay. And you also said that the department, that you'll be requesting funds from the department to help pay his part of the trip?
Yes, sir. I think his part will be about $1,000. So I am going to request some funds to see and help out as much as we can with that trip.
Okay. And also, have you talked to Jacob about the orthodontic work that he wants to have done?
Yes, sir. I did talk to Jacob and Mrs. Lee about it. Miss Lee did find a brace program that's for foster children that provides braces for like $600 or $650. So we are going to look into that program to see if he would qualify, and then request funds to help provide for that if we can get him qualified for that.
Okay. And then also, Jacob turned 15 in January. Have you talked to him about working on, he's going to want to start working towards getting a driver's license here before too long. Have you talked to him about that?
We didn't talk about the driver's license. We did talk about the Texas state ID. So I will be requesting the social and birth certificate so that we can help him get his state ID within the next month, hopefully. And then I'll talk to him next time I see him about the driver's license.
Okay. Very good. And so your testimony today is that the current placement meets all of his needs,
Yes.
continues to be the best place for him.
Yes.
Okay. What can you tell the judge about any sibling visits or sibling contact between Jacob and his brothers and sisters? Is the department doing anything to facilitate that right now?
There has been no contact between his brother. Jacob does not want any contact with Michael. They did ask me when I first took over the case about 2 months ago if there were sibling visits set up, and I had said not at that time because I was, trying to find out more information. But Jacob does not want sibling visits with Michael. I think he may have contact with his sister. He doesn't mention too much about sibling visits other than that he doesn't want to see Michael.
Okay. When is the last time you talked to Jacob about this?
I asked Jacob every time I visit. I saw him last month. I can find the date right now about visiting Michael. He doesn't say too much about siblings when I visit.
Okay. Well, would it surprise you to know that he told me that he would be happy to talk to Michael, but he thinks Michael doesn't want to talk to him?
Yes, sir. I had not heard that at this time.
Okay. Well, this family fractured a very long time ago, but the children were all still maintaining some level of contact with each other. And then last year, the family fractured again for different reasons. But does the department have any reason other than the children's own preferences to not try to facilitate sibling visits?
Not at this time.
Okay. You don't know of any other reason why they shouldn't stay in touch with each other. You're just basing your testimony on what Jacob has told you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Very good. I'll pass the witness.
All right. Mr. Bauer, why don't you give me your update? It sounds like you've had recent communication with at least Jacob and have some information regarding, I know we spoke a long time at our last hearing about this issue of visitation. And so what would you like to address?
Well, Your Honor, from my seat, of course, as the attorney ad litem, I'm going to advocate for what my clients tell me they want. And I did have a really nice visit with Jacob. I think he's doing very well. In my opinion, he's always done really well in Rebecca Lee's home. That's where he wants to stay. She wants him to stay there. I think they have a very close bond with each other. I think that the placement there meets all of his needs, and he should continue to live there. They, over the years, they've kind of danced around a little bit trying to decide if they wanted to get married about adoption, and that just hasn't ever, they've never both stayed on the same page long enough to make that a reality. And that's okay. If he's happy with the status quo and she's happy with the status quo, I don't see any reason for you to do anything different regarding Jacob. As far as the sibling contact, for a very long time, these children have not been placed together. And but they all still maintained some contact with each other. And obviously the incident with Alex fractured this family again. And unfortunately, it seems like maybe the siblings picked sides, and anybody that still was going to have any contact or relationship with Alex was going to be ostracized by the older sister, Mariana, and she's upset. Her child was a victim of a horrible crime. So understand where that idea might come from. But anyway, so when I spoke to Jacob yesterday, I asked him about sibling contact or visits with his brothers and sisters, communication with them. And he did not indicate to me that he's opposed to it. But what I basically got was, well, they have my phone number. They know how to get a hold of me if they want to. And I said, well, you have their phone numbers too. You could reach out to them. Yes. Well, do you? No. And for some reason, Jacob thinks that Michael doesn't want to see him or doesn't want to have any contact with him. And that may be true, or it may not be true. I don't know. I know that with children this age, forcing them into contact with people that they really don't want to have any contact with is sometimes counterproductive. They might go and sit with their arms folded up and say, okay, I checked the box. Can I go now? But at the end of the day, they're all still siblings, and their whole family may have come apart, but they did still have some relationship with each other. So that's a bunch of words to say. I don't know that I'm asking you to intervene and force anything or order anything, but I just wanted to have some record of it and have some discussion with all the folks that are participating here to say that I think it probably would be a good thing if these young people talk to each other, maybe just through telephone calls and text messages instead of all communication. And
All right, thank you.
That's the input I have. And the only other thing, Judge, I want to point out to you is Josephine Miller was the guardian ad litem, the CASA advocate for all of these children for a very long time. And I suppose she has stepped down from CASA and she's been removed from this case. So right now, there is no, I haven't seen anything regarding a replacement. So I wanted that to be addressed today also.
Right. Thank you. I do think it needs to be addressed. And Ms. Lopez, I saw you had your hand raised.
Yes, ma'am. I just wanted to add, I did talk to Michael about visitation with Jacob, and he stated that he does not want any contact with any family members for 5 years because he's hoping, and I quote, that they get their stuff together. The only person that he is trying to get in contact with is his father, just so that he can talk to him. And it pretty much sounded like he wanted to have some closure with his father because of their history. But those were his words yesterday as far as having any contact with family.
All right. Does anyone else need to address the court at this time? No. All right. Okay, so first of all, I think this is our first hearing for Michael since he turned 18 in November. And so I'm not sure in looking at the documentation if we have an order that reflects, probably not since this is the first hearing, but given that he has turned 18 and is now legally an adult, the department is dismissed as the permanent managing conservator as of that date, and the court has entered an extended jurisdiction period for him because he has remained in extended foster care and is currently attempting to graduate from high school and to set himself up for participation in the military and enlistment with the Marines. So the court today holding a services review hearing as to Michael finds that he is receiving all necessary services to help him successfully transition to adulthood. And I appreciate that he's in such a committed foster home that's providing support and guidance through what sounds like a kind of rocky period for him. But I it sounds like we're getting back on track, and that we can get through the next few months and help get him in a position to successfully enter the military, which is his desire. So thank you for that. And I appreciate you being here as you were for our last hearing as well. As far as Jacob is concerned, the court is going to continue his placement, find that continuation of that placement is in his best interest, that all of his physical and emotional needs are being met there presently, and that it's in his best interest to remain there. And that the department, as the managing conservator, is making reasonable efforts to achieve permanency for him. In that respect, an ongoing stable placement and aging out as a permanency option is reasonable to me, as long as he's not moved. He's where he feels comfortable, safe, and he's doing well by all accounts. I would like to order the department to help provide the funds for the choir trip. I think this is a great opportunity for him, and he deserves that opportunity. So I would order that at this time, and order the department to obviously assist him in getting his ID. He's not yet 16 to start PAL services, but I do think a conversation needs to be had about driver's ed as well, given that he is eligible for a permit. And if that's something he wants to do, and then we need to be discussing that and seeing if we can facilitate preparations for a driver's license as well. The court at this time I'm saddened by the reports from Jacob and Michael regarding their visits. And I'm, as Mr. Bauer indicated, I feel much the same. You know, I don't think that boys of this age, that forcing visits if they're not wanted by either party is going to be a positive or productive experience for either of them. I mean, it has to be something that's desired, and that hope needs to be expressed by both parties in terms of those visits proceeding. I just think there needs to be a constant conversation as to that issue. And if there is a willingness or a window that would allow for visits, if there, there is a mutual understanding at some point that contact or communication of any kind, text, telephone, actual visits, then it's our duty to facilitate that. And I think it's our duty to constantly assess and explore the potential. There are damaged relationships here, and we can recognize that, and we can try to repair them, and it may not be possible, but I do think we have the duty to at least be constantly assessing that. And so that's what I will ask at this time, for Ms. Lopez and Ms. Marion to work together to be really assessing that on a monthly basis. I think that's something that you have to address with Jacob and Michael going forward. And as you pointed out, Mr. Bauer, right now, Jacob has no guardian ad litem. And so if you have no objection, I'd like to appoint you in that dual capacity. I don't think that there's a conflict in you taking on that role at this time. Is there an issue in your mind?
No, Your Honor, I don't believe there's any conflict. And I had talked to Jacob about that you may or may not appoint a separate person, or you might appoint me to serve in the dual role. And I don't think there's any conflict at all.
Okay, well, thank you. As I don't have anyone stepping up from CASA to take over the case, I think that's our best option. And I really appreciate your willingness to serve in the dual role. So I will make that appointment as well. And I'll let everyone know that we will be back for our next hearing, which will be a permanency review for Jacob and a services review hearing for Michael on August the 8th at 10:30 in the morning. All right, so thank you all so much. Is there anything else we need to address at this time?
Nothing further on behalf of the department, Your Honor.
No,
All
Your
right,
Honor.
well, if not, thank you all. All parties are excused.